On today's Locked On Guardians, we got a few more trade offers to discuss. We're going to profile the shortstop position, and we're going to get into the weeds on the position. We're going to talk about some players who might be 5 years away from being 5 years away on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, whatever it is you get podcasts. I'm Jeff Ellis, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Guardians. Before doing this gig, I was the lead draft and prospect analyst at Scout 24/7. Before that, I wrote for many a Cleveland sports blog. And contrary to at least popular hater belief, I did play baseball prior to those times. Justin, let them know about you.
I am Justin Latta, the co-host for almost exactly a month now. It's been a fantastic month. Well, some people don't think so, but I think it's been great with you, Jeff. But I'm currently the managing editor of GuardiansBaseballInsider.com. Previously I'm still freelancing for the News Herald and the Morning Journal in the greater Cleveland area, suburb area. And I've also been at several Cleveland baseball blogs going back 10, 12 years now, 15 years, maybe even. It's hard to say. They all run together.
It is always hard to remember all the places you've popped up from time to time for both of us, I think, because we do just, excuse me, first cop of the show, where we've popped up over the years. I want to take a quick moment and, send some thank yous out. We had some new iTunes reviews, and as people know, that is something here on the show where, it's helpful to the show. So if you have not left one, please consider that, just like please consider subscribing on YouTube. I want to say, first, congratulations to Hip Hop Head 30, who found the worst podcast ever, and it's this one, according to them. So if you disagree, leave a review, knock that out of the top 3. I will say the funny thing with reviews is they're mostly all 5, 4, 1. I don't think we have any 3-star reviews, for instance. Ray Diggs, RYDEIGS, very nice thing. We have brought them back to baseball, and they started listening in June. They would like, when things get slow, for us to get more into the weeds, which I don't think is what we expected. But roster stuff is some things they don't always understand, how slotting in the draft works, service time works, 40-man rules, and an explanation of WRC plus and FIP. And in spite of Justin's statements, Justin has been a great addition. Keep up the work. And Sizemore24, I feel like a new review is always popping for him. I think it might be he just changes what he says and allows it to move up. But he has a Sean Murphy trade proposal, which is Amed Rosario, Miles Straw, Owen Miller, and Aaron Savale for Sean Murphy, with his idea being Gabby can be in short, Brennan can be in left, and Quan in center. I don't think Oakland's going for that. What are your thoughts?
Was it Ahmed, Straw,
Savale, and Miller?
Yeah. Anybody who is in arbitration at this point is out for Oakland. So that would be what? Well, Miles Straw's got a pretty cheap contract, but they don't need him because they have Ramon Laureano. Aaron Savale is sitting arbitration. Who else did he say? Amed Rosario. Amed Rosario way too expensive for Oakland. If you think,
and he's a rental.
Some people thought that some people commented or reposted on Twitter that Christian Walker was too expensive for Cleveland. If that's the case, then Amed Rosario is too expensive for Oakland. So it's gonna take some guys that are a few years away from being a few years away for Sean Murphy.
Because let's see, I think Miller is like 5, Ahmed's 9, Savale is going to be 2 point something. So you're looking at about 17 million out and only 3.5 million out with Murphy. So yeah, that's probably a no, but thank you Sizemore for the review. And then sometimes people reach out to us via Facebook. Now I also am going to alert you. Last time I tried to read the Facebook stuff, my computer shut down. So we'll see if we can get through it this time. Take 2
Facebook
from Pete Podner. Sorry, Pete. Let me know how I butchered it. And hey, now you're part of the fabric of this show, me butchering a name. For his Christian Walker one, Rosario, Valera, Allen, and maybe Tanner Burns. Reasoning. Rosario is going to be exposed with the shift. He likes Arias. thinks that would be an upgrade over Perdomo, and Valera could be a DH for them.
I mean, that would probably get it done.
It would get done. I think it's a bit much.
Yeah, I don't think Cleveland's going to want to give up that much. I don't think you need Valera to get Christian Walker, and I don't even think Arizona would want. Like, Valera's fine. They would say, yeah, we'll take him, but like they already have outfielders. So I mean, I guess they could use DH, but they're going to rotate that anyway. But
they already. I mean, that's we talked about on the show yesterday, and Pete sent that on Friday, so he didn't get a chance to listen. But it's like yesterday's show. It's you got Alec Thomas, who's a top 3 Gold Glove candidate in center field, Corbin Carroll, Jake McCarthy, and Dalton Varsho. So I mean, they're loaded to the heel with outfielders. What they need is kind of more corner infielders, if we're being honest. And that's hence some of that talk we had yesterday about maybe Nolan Jones making sense. I didn't hear anyone come back on that one. I was kind of expecting to I thought that might generate some interesting talk. But yeah, do we want to do some more kind of around? By the way, I did want to point out that we are up to 821 subscribers on YouTube. So now we talked about iTunes reviews and everything else. That's, we're still chugging away. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000. If you're not subscribed yet, please go and subscribe. Should we dive into former Guardian coach, right? Wasn't Matt Quatraro?
Yeah, it was hitting coach, assistant hitting coach.
I'm saying his name wrong.
Matt Quatraro sounds right. Quatraro sounds right.
From 2014 to 2017 from Old Dominion University. He was the assistant hitting coach for the Guardians and then he left here to go serve as a third base coach and then a bench coach with the Rays.
That's a nice hire for the Royals. Guy who's a young hitting mind, and they already have some interesting.
Only 48.
Okay. That's a good hire. I mean, it's way better than where they were. Truthfully, I mean, what have they gone from? Ned Yost to Mike Matheny, right? That was was the oof. Considering the other hire, like the Marlins had Skip Schumacher. I don't know. And the White Sox decided on Tony La Russa last year. They don't have a coach right now. I think it's a great hire. Honestly, I do. I think
weren't they taking was that not official with the Chicago White Sox?
No, it's not official yet. They've had a couple interviews with Joe Espada, and they supposedly had multiple interviews with Ozzie Guillen. Shocking. Got to throw that in there. Love it. No, this is a good hire for the Royals. So I mean, you got Vinny Pasquantino, you've got Nick Pratto, you've got Bobby Witt Jr., you've got MJ Melendez, you've got a bunch of other young hitters that are coming up to that system that are already there. I think Quatraro is a great pick for that lineup. It'll be interesting to see. I think they really need more of a culture shift. So it's interesting that they stayed inside the organization to keep their GM JJ Piccolo, but they went out. Yeah, but they went outside the organization to get a manager. I think that's weird. So I'll be curious to see who. I don't know who's back on that staff. Are they keeping? I think they fired their pitching coach. So I guess I'll see who brings in. But they need their hitting developed just fine this year, and I think they're going to continue to hit. I think it's going to be the pitching end of things that needs a lot of help. So we'll see what Quatraro brings in because he has been a hitting guy in his career. But I like it. Yeah, I think it's a good fit.
Their pitching development is
bad.
I would say infamous.
That's right.
It's infamous. It's not just bad. It's like the stories are infamous for how bad they are. So I would say, they need, which is why it's weird that you keep they make a minor, like the in-house move is still odd to me. Yeah. But, it is what it is. Why don't we take our first break here and then we'll come back and talk about the shortstop position. We're going to kind of do the present and past in section 1, and then section 3 we'll leave ourselves some time for some deep prospect chatter on today's Locked On Guardians. And then our first sponsor, let me get the little thing up. One of our Mount Rushmore of sponsors, as I like to say, one of the top 4 of all time. If you're curious, who's the Mount Rushmore of Locked On Guardian sponsors? Bet Online, Built Bar, Blue Chew. I don't know who's in that 4th spot. It's like the first and the 2 longest. And Bet Online has been there for us for almost every single day for the last 2 years. They're your number 1 source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there, the fastest and easiest way to check on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And I'll say it again, sometimes you get an audio stream from their website. So if you're looking for something that's a little hard to find, I don't know, you just check that out. Keep that in the back of your mind. Go check out BetOnline today. And
real quick,
yes.
The Royals do not have a pitching or hitting coach yet. They're still looking for that. I wonder if Matt Quatraro might be looking towards Cleveland. I mean, you've got Joe Torres, who replaced Ruben Niebla. You've got, I don't know, they got a couple pitching guys that you might see the Royals reach out to that are not Carl Willis. We'll see what happens. Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, no, it's so I just want to throw this out there before we go in. We did get an A's fan who commented that they would need 2 of Espino, Valera, Williams, and Bybee. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Like, I appreciate him watching and listening, but again, go look what Matt Olson netted, and it was 1 type A guy. So you're not netting 2 type A's. So I love I love the comment, but there's not a world where I'm trading 2 of those top 4 guys.
I'm not either, but I think you could at least make an argument for the fact that Sean Murphy is more valuable than Matt Olson, because catching is so much, more rare. And we talked about how defense from the catcher is going to become more critical next year, even before we get robo-umps, unless Pat Hoberg is back there. In that case, you don't need a robo-ump. But yeah, you're going to need better catching defense, and he is such a good hitting catcher, and he's got 3 years of control. You could argue that Sean Murphy does have more value than Matt Olson. I know Matt Olson is a very good player, but positional value alone.
Sorry. I think a year ago, for sure, he is more valuable. I think they're similar, like in terms of Olson's value to Murphy's now. I think are a lot closer overall. But his final offer is Valera, Bybee, Allen, and Brennan.
Nope.
Yeah, that's
Cleveland would turn that down. And like you said, respect the fact that he's listening. And look, Oakland's definitely going to come in, and I'm sure that happened already. Because look, they've had discussions over the last year that Cleveland's interested in Murphy. We talked about this. There's the reason it's not done is because Oakland's probably made those similar demands. Cleveland's not going to do that for sure, but. I don't know. I would definitely argue. What did we say Murphy has left? 3 years of control?
Yeah.
23, 24, 25. Cleveland was not going to extend Matt Olson the way Atlanta did. So at the best, they were going to get 2 years out of Matt Olson. That's why they weren't going to give up more than they did, or than Atlanta did, even though they signed into an extension. But I don't know. I think you could argue Murphy, even though Olson's the better player, Murphy carries more value due to position. I don't know. I can see them asking for the stars and the moon. I just don't think Cleveland's going to give it to him.
Let's see. And before, like last year when that trade happened, Langoliers was like a top 50-ish prospect. Ryan Cusick was not even a top 100 prospect. Yeah. And then Estes was kind of a 4th guy, and Pache was way down the list because he had been so poor. They've been trying to break him in since 2020, rather unsuccessfully, and he hadn't been playing well. So he was a nice like buy low candidate, but he was the 2nd or 3rd piece in that deal. So it's what you're asking for. Valera is all of those prospects that Cleveland could potentially offer are likely to be higher ranked than Shane Langoliers was. So right there, you're starting with the higher value central piece, and then the secondaries from there. So that's just the day, of baseball anymore. We're not seeing a ton of prospects go out in deals. You don't see a lot of the high end of the high end outside of like the Jose Barrios deal stands out for one that had some big names, but we're not seeing as many of those in general. But a classic example of how it shifted is look at the Lindor trade, right? Like, Jimenez and Rosario were both former top 10 overall prospects. Rosario, one could make, like, a lot of people thought that they were going to try to flip him before that season even started.
There were
That,
rumors.
There was a lot of various talk with him. Wolf and Green were definitely lotto tickets. Listen, Rosario's come in and he's had 2 solid seasons. He's going to make $9 million and he's going to be a free agent who's probably going to command somewhere from 12 to 15. I'm fine with him for a year. I am fine with trading him. What is your kind of final thought as we profile the shortstop position?
Well, remember in that trade too, it also, Cleveland was trying to get rid of salary they traded Carrasco. So it wasn't Lindor for 4 straight up. It was those 2 players. Carrasco was in that deal as well, which is really interesting to look at. You're right. I mean, what did Lindor have left? 1 year of control, I think. So
yes, 1 year of control.
Yeah. That really made a difference. And then Carrasco. I mean, the fact that you got 2 major leaguers for Carrasco and Lindor, and then two lottery tickets that were a few years away from being a few years away. It does show. There are no more Grady Sizemore, Brandon Phillips, Cliff Lee trades for Bartolo Colon. Those do not exist anymore.
But even if you go back to that one, like, let's be perfectly honest, that deal was similar to a Matt Olson deal in a way. Like, Grady Sizemore was not a top 100 prospect at the time. He was an interesting athlete. He was a high upside bet. He was a quarterback.
Brandon Phillips was the key to that deal, man.
Brandon Phillips was the star. Cliff Lee wasn't a top 100 guy. His value was a little down, and Lee Stevens was just salary. Right. It was all about Brandon Phillips, and then the other guys were scouting coups. Like, for as much as that is a huge win, that was not. It was Brandon Phillips. That was the center of that deal. They have spent forever trying to find infielders. He was going to be the dude, and then he became the dude for the Reds instead. And
that dude, BP.
And the Guardians got Jeff Stevens, who turned into Mark DeRosa, who turned into Chris Perez. So that worked out. But instead of focusing on that, like I said, I think at the end is there anyone out there who doesn't think that the Lindor trade is a win by now? Like,
yeah, hard to say. I mean, it was a win for both teams.
Yeah,
it's one of those. Yeah, and that's the good thing. It definitely worked out for both sides there.
And the entirety of the deal. Like, if Cleveland gets anything out of the lotto tickets, that's great.
Right.
But for the Mets, Lindor was very good for him this year, and Carrasco was a lifesaver. Like, he has been, worth every dime for the Mets as they've had pitching injuries. And
especially for Cleveland, they got this option up,
and they might pick it up.
They're gonna have to.
I think. I mean, they have so many free agents to be, but I also think, like, for Cleveland, they got 2 starters out of it. For the Mets, they got 2 starters out of it. Could the Mets have waited, held on to their guys, and, like, gone and signed a shortstop in a year? Yeah. They could have likely done that. But instead, they made the splash. And I don't know if there's, any other feeling on that, but I agree. I think it's one of those, it's a win. What do you want them to do at shortstop? Like I said, Amed is solid, but there's so many caveats to that. Are you good? Like I said, I'm totally fine running him there. If it's 1 more year, that's okay. I would not pay him $10 million plus. And I guess that's my question to those out there who do want to keep him. Are you willing to pay him $10 million plus? Make sure to, let us know in one of the comments. I'm curious to see that response.
Yeah. I mean, this is his final year of arbitration, and he's projected to get 9, right? We said there'll be trade rumors.
Correct.
Yeah. Like, payroll is going to go up a little bit anyway, or if he stays on the team, it will, just because of arbitration and other guys' salaries moving up, Bieber arbitration, all that stuff. I don't know. There have only been 7 hitters for the Guardians over the last, or Guardians/Indians over the last 2 years that have totaled 400 plate appearances that are above a 100 WRC plus, and 2 of those guys don't even play in Cleveland anymore. One was Fremel Reyes and one was Cesar Hernandez. So there are 5 guys over the last 2 years that have at least 400 plate appearances that are at least a league average bat or better. That's hard to replace. There's no guarantee that Gabby Arias steps in and repeats that. There's no guarantee that Brian Rocchio. I don't think Brian Rocchio will be ready this year. If he is, that's certainly not going to be the start of the season. I think you would almost immediately shift to Arias or Freeman at shortstop, or you move Jimenez over there. But either way, one of those two probably goes into the lineup, right? If you do that. So there's no guarantee they pick that slack up. And that's, for as frustrating as Rosario can be, he's extremely consistent. He gets hot in bunches, and you know what you're going to get. So I think the $9 million thing is a little bit dicey, considering, how do you want to upgrade first base? Do you want to upgrade catcher? Do you want to upgrade one spot in the rotation while you're waiting on any of your, Bobby Williams, Espino for this year? I don't know. I think they should explore the trade market for him and see what they can get back and how else they can shore the position up. But it's definitely tricky. There's no guarantee. Like, the biggest knock on Arias is the bat, right? We don't know for sure how good the bat's going to be. It's got plenty of potential, but it's not a sure thing. And I think Rocchio, we talked about Angel Martinez last time. We did second base. Those guys have more upside than Rosario offensively as well, but certainly not ready this season. If Cleveland's going to come back, try to run it back and try to win the division again in 2023, could do a lot worse than Amed Rosario. But beyond this year, yeah, you've really got to think about alternative plans and make sure one of the guys in your system is the guy,
Is there any chance of like a short-term extension? I feel like it's unlikely because he's 27. So why would he want to do a short-term extension? Right. But do you think there's any chance of like that, hey, 2-3 year deal instead of going to arbitration?
I don't think. Like, he's hitting free agency at a good age, but it's not like he's Lindor or Correa or Machado, those guys hitting free agency. Like, yeah, he's been up early, but he's not a star, so he's not going to get one of these, I know Correa settled for a 1-year deal to, try to re-enter the market this year, and he'll probably do good this time around. But, he's not going to get an 8 or 10-year deal. I think he's probably looking at a 3 or 4-year deal. I can't imagine. I can't imagine he's going to take something. I think at the very worst, he would just come back on a 1-year deal, and he would try to, improve his value and go back on the market. I think at the very worst, that's fine. I would see how this year plays out, see where you're at with your prospects, and then go from there. But it's hard once he hits the open market.
So outside of him, the other shortstops we saw at points this year: Ty Freeman, Gabby Arias. If they were to trade Amed and not get a shortstop, who do you think is the shortstop next year?
I would probably guess that Gabby Arias gets the first crack at it if Rosario is traded. All the comments this year made it seem like they really liked him and they really thought he put a lot of work in. They were rewarding him with those doubleheader call-ups when he was the 27th man, and then he played in the playoffs. Like, that showed some. I don't know if that was more of a, okay, we really don't trust Owen Miller, so this is our next best option. But he came through in those spots. So I think that the organization, that could be just them talking him up and for a trade, possibly. Who knows? But
showcasing him.
Anyway. Yeah, if it's not Gabby Arias, then I guess you would go. Yeah, one of those two is probably the guy next year. I guess if they trade Rosario, I guess you go to camp and you leave that spot open, and one of those two guys in camp is battling for that spot, and you're going to see if they keep hold of it or if Rocchio is ready by the second half.
Yeah, I thought today it was kind of funny in the Athletic, not to throw anyone under the bus, but I instantly thought of you when I saw the Jason Lloyd piece talking about Will Brennan increasing his value with his August call up, and all I could think about. Oh
yes, those 2 weeks really paved the way for.
I don't know if you read that, but I was sitting there reading that this morning. I got like 8:15 to 8:30 before school starts to like do some reading and just kind of relax, and I immediately thought about you. That's where my mind went. I was like, oh, if Justin's read this, I can feel him steaming from miles away. Mm-hmm. Why don't we take a break here and then come back and talk about, the big name prospect, and then maybe, some lesser guys who are worth mentioning, who fans may not be familiar with on today's Locked On Guardians. So should we just start with shortstop prospects, the future? Rocchio. let's start there. You have concerns. A lot of people view him as maybe the top hitter in this system, that he could be the top hitting prospect. I have said that. You have concerns. So let's lead off with your thoughts.
I do a little. I mean, there's definitely some Amed Rosario to his game. He can be aggressive as a hitter. He did improve his walk rate this year at Double-A and cut his strikeout rate a little bit. Strikeout rate's not been an issue for him really. It's way above average. So it's fine. I don't have any concerns about contact, but he does like to swing the bat and like to hit. So I kind of worry there will be some lack of patience in his game at the big league level. And defensively, he's definitely an upgrade over Rosario, although at times he kind of tries too much to make the big play, I think, rather than worry about making the sure play, or makes sure plays look a bit more difficult. Yeah, he's young. He's been young for every level, so it's hard to say for certain that those concerns are going to pan out. But I mean, Rosario was up by what?
He was young when he came up. He was,
I think he was already up by the time
or 22
age.
Yeah,
he was 21. So Rocchio is going to be 22 at the start of the new year. So Rosario had already debuted at that point. But yeah, I just worry there's going to be a little bit more aggression to his game offensively. Like I feel like they're really similar players, to be honest with you. Like Rosario was so highly rated coming out as a prospect, and it was okay. It's hit tool, not much power, good speed, good glove, and that didn't all pan out. And Rocchio is hit tool, not much power, good speed, good glove. I know a lot of places had Rosario rated a lot higher than they have Rocchio, but they feel very similar. Only that Rocchio is probably a better defender and is probably not probably equal runners, I would say. But I don't know, he's a switch hitter too, but I think there's some similarities there, which is not a bad thing. Like we kept saying, Rosario is a league average player, and that's fine. You need those guys on your team because you can't have, 15 guys that are above league average. It just doesn't happen offensively. So that's fine. But just, I don't know. I feel like they're rated very similar as prospects.
So if you just want to look at age 20 seasons in Double-A, walk percentage for Amed was 6.4 for Rocchio. Strikeout percentage 21.5 for Rocchio, 20.2. Runs created plus a 142 for Amed, a 135. BABIP, which often can show quality contact, a 350 as opposed to a 433 for Amed. Just doing slash line, 341, 392, 481 as opposed to a 293, 360, 505. So a little more power in. I don't know what the Mets Double-A park is, but I know Cleveland is not power friendly. So yeah, and in these cases, tracking 54 games and 44 games. But yeah, there's certainly some lines for comparison between the two.
I'm not saying Rocchio won't be good. I'm still high on Rocchio too. And this is just watching him play. It's not just looking at stats. He does take a lot of swings, and sometimes he's aggressive. And
should we take it as a sign that he's going to be traded? That if you go to MLB Pipeline's prospect rankings, he's the only prospect without the Cleveland Guardians as a listed team. He just has a complete slash through team and level this year.
Rocchio?
Oh, yeah. Everyone else is there. The only other guys who have slashes through level are the draft picks like DeLauder and Campbell, who didn't play. Zibin and Messick, but no Cleveland Guardians label on Brian Rocchio. Just kind of a fun fact.
And then Pipeline has, real quick, but MLB Pipeline has Jacob Zibin in their top 30.
Yeah, because he got $1 million plus. They put him at 28 because Joe Lampe is 30th.
This is a really good farm system.
Nick Casey is 26th.
This is a really good farm system. I'm just going to say that. This is a really good.
Tanner Burns is 18th. That's probably the worst one, if we're being honest. Not to bury someone who's down, but that one, the reports have not been positive either, if we're being honest.
We should probably move on. I'm just going to say we should probably move on.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, I appreciate what Pipeline tries to do, but it's hard when you're two guys. And this is just a lot of it is often who's got the name, who got a big bonus, and who is played in the big leagues. That's why Will Brennan, it took him getting called up to move up to 20th on this list, where he struggled to even make the top 30 most of this year. But we're talking shortstops. So, it was more just the fun of Rocchio. He's also a switch hitter. I know some people have talked about how they would like a switch hitter on the team. So I did want to point out he's a switch hitter. He's one of the few guys. I think him, Churio, and then the other shortstop that we want to talk about. Let's talk about Jose Tena, and then we'll talk about the kind of deep sleeper at this position.
Yeah, Jose Tena, another aggressive hitter there too. He was, his aggressive nature got the best of him this year. 21 at Double-A. He did hit 13 home runs. He was really good in Lake County in 2021. He was 20 years old, and he won a minor league Gold Glove at shortstop, by the way, which is also voted on by coaches in the minors. I actually might say Tena's defense is very close to Rocchio's, and his arm might be better. I think Tena's a really good defender. He and Rocchio were both playing shortstop.
Yeah. Yes, offensively, he was a bit of a mess this year, though, and I think that's where he was a borderline top 10 guy coming into the year. He's now definitely a teens guy, I think, to everyone. I know you were just telling me before the show he had gone deep in the Dominican League. What's he need to do to get himself back up in that top 10 discussion? Does he need more guys to graduate? But which might be the obvious statement. But what else needs to occur, kind of get him back up there? We're amongst the best of the best.
I don't know. I mean, do you send him back to Double-A this year? He had a cup of coffee in Triple-A at the end of the season. He never really got it going at Double-A. Like, he had spurts where he looks like he was getting it together. Excuse me, but he's still 21. He'll be 22 all of next year. So 22 is still like slightly younger than the rest of the Eastern League. So that's still good. I don't know. I think it's going to come down to, I don't know. We keep harping on these guys like walk rate and strikeout rate, and it's like some of these guys do make it work. I have a feeling Jose Tena is not changing. I just don't think he's going to change who he is. Like, he's an aggressive hitter. He's going to continue to be an aggressive hitter. So he is just going to have to find a way to make it work with these extreme lines. Like, he could be a Jonathan Scope. Like, Jonathan Scope has had similar strikeout numbers and low walk totals in his career, and he's been fine. And Scope, I think Tena is probably a better defender and a better runner than Scope, although Scope is getting nominated for a Gold Glove this year. Tena's faster. So I don't know. Yeah, he's not far off. He's having a great night as we're recording this in the Dominican, but I think he's definitely got to come back next year. And 264. I'm sorry. His average on balls in play actually didn't drop that much. It went from 355 to 332. That's somewhat significant. I don't know. Let's see how he does against Double-A pitching this year. And although, where does he play? Like, you have Angel Martinez going to Double-A next year. I think that's it. So maybe you can keep those two guys at Double-A next season.
Yeah. And let's talk about a deep sleeper, Angel Genoa, 18-year-old, another switch hitter, listed at 5'9", 150. So very slight build. He's not the most. Listen, there's like Jason Churio is probably the most interesting, teenager in the system right now. It's not a knock on anyone else, but Genoa made waves. I think towards the end of the year, he got himself called up to A-ball, solid defender, very much feels like a Guardians type of hitter. And then, yeah, the stats in A-ball weren't great, but I'll point out this is a team that doesn't typically, they like to spread their bonus money around. They gave him 1.175 million. So they really liked him, and he has played well, and he feels like a helium guy fans should be keeping their eyes on.
Yeah, I like Angel Genoa for sure. I think he's got a good future at shortstop. He definitely looks like he can play there. A very similar build to a young Jose Ramirez, to be honest with you. Like, switch hitter, runs well, slaps the ball, not very big. Will play all of next season, most likely at low A. I don't know if he'll get to high A. We'll see how things go. But, Jose was in low A at 19 as well. Now, Jose also skipped high A at age 20, which is very unheard of. But Jose, as we know, is a unique player, so who knows? But yeah, there's not some. I mean, there's some similar things going on there. Jose was a very slight kid at that age too, and ran well and hit the ball over the field. Definitely one of the guys you want to be paying attention to next year as well. I would also keep an eye, and this is like super, super deep, but I would keep an eye on Yoris Valdez. I know a lot of people have said that he's probably a utility guy, and he probably is. But I got to see him play at the end of the season in Lake County last year, and that guy plays a heck of a shortstop or second base. They were starting him over Aaron Bracho in the playoffs, which we talked about that before. But he was fantastic, and he was hitting the ball all over the field too. He was hitting doubles to left and right field, and
it's just, I mean, he was a second-round pick, right? Yeah, he was a second-round pick in 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
Almost entirely for that glove. The bat just has not been there. So it's, yeah, I mean, I that's where he does strike me as a utility guy. It was him and Castro. Was it Miguel Castro? Or is that dad?
Christian Cairo?
Christian Cairo, that's it. Miguel Cairo, son of son Christian Cairo. Who they, not
quite as good.
Who had the great story, according to the LSU coach, who's no longer there, right? That Cairo walked out on a meeting after agreeing to sign. I'm like, why is he even in a meeting? Like, everyone knows days before the draft how this stuff's gonna slot out. But that's the thing. It's Cairo was a big money guy in the 4th round. Valdez was a second rounder in 2019, and we kind of forget about him, and he's not even a top 30 prospect. 2019 wasn't that long ago. I get that he's been a bit of a disappointment, but it's a nice situation to have. And then I think, to go back to the top of it, it's like, I'm totally fine with one more year of Amed. I also understand trading Amed because they built this pipeline. And at some point, you need to either use it or trade it to help you out. And I'll be curious to see how it plays out. But the one thing we know this team does well is evaluate middle infielders. So I feel pretty good about the future.
Yeah, like we said a few episodes ago about second base, there's no chance. This, even going into this year, because they're going to have to roster Angel Martinez, it's just hard to believe that Gabby Arias, Tyler Freeman, Andres Jimenez, Owen Miller, Brian Rocchio, Amed Rosario, Jose Tena, and Angel Martinez are all going to survive all winter on the 40-man roster. Like, I could see 2 of those guys not being here by spring training. One could be Owen Miller, and there might be somebody else.
No, it's a nice situation to have. And again, it just speaks to the development and what they do nicely here. Any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up and put it to bed?
You didn't want to touch on Carson Tucker?
Speaking of forgotten high draft picks, first rounder, just health. And then health is running to development, and just goes to show you, at the end of the day, what's the most important thing is health. Carson Tucker, and we should be fair, Carson Tucker was not a first rounder in that draft. He was not. He was not viewed as a top 30 talent. What he was viewed as is a top 50 or so talent who was willing to sign for massively underslot. And Cleveland used that underslot savings to help get several other players. So not as necessarily a way to dig on a guy when he's down, but Carson Tucker wasn't a top 30 player. He was a player. I remember talking to an agent who's like, he's going to go somewhere in the top 30, massively underslot. And that's what happened. He was a savings guy. And it's the equivalent of the trade down, I've always said, in the MLB draft. When you do that, you're trying to, and they use that money to help get Logan Allen, Milan Tolentino, who we talked about, as a second baseman who had a big year. P.D. Halpin, who we're definitely going to talk about when we get to center fielders. He had one of the quiet breakouts this year. They spread that money around. So, yeah, if you look at him as a first rounder, it's a disappointment. I mean, if you look at him as a high pick, it's a disappointment. But we also have to understand the narrative behind it, I think, in fairness. But, on that note, I hope Carson Tucker, breaks out and shows everyone. And the Guardians all of a sudden have yet another fun name and system. But if not, they have so much depth, it almost doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
They're going to have so much to show from that class that it's they can totally whiff on a first rounder, and it's not that they still have a top 5 system. So just keep that in the back of your mind. This one of the amazing things is they made the playoffs as the youngest team in baseball, younger than any MLB or AAA team, and they still have a top 5 farm system, and none of the blue chip guys have really hit yet. So it should be a fun run. For myself and Justin, I just want to end it here and say, go, go, Guardians, go.